Whenever you are ready, go for it.
Well, happy Tuesday, Billings, Montana. Sergeant Jeff Stovall down at the Crime Prevention Center here with our second 5-0 Forum podcast. Uh, got a little touch of winter going on out there today, so hopefully everybody's nice and safe on their drives where they need to get to go. And just reminding everybody to, if you don't have to drive, don't be out there. Roads are still really slick, and they will be for the next couple of days. So take your time, get there safe, and happy travels there as well. So our second edition podcast today, I'm really, really excited. We've got a good friend of mine, Sergeant Justin Jagers. He is actually retiring from the police department after 21 years being with the department. So, very decorated officer. Somebody that's taught me a lot, both on as a police officer, and then even some of our short time on the SWAT team together as well. Very, very. He's definitely a large loss to us at the police department. So we'll get into some of that with him here today. So I just want to welcome you. Thanks for coming in, Justin, and we appreciate you. Congratulations ahead of time for your retirement. And
thank you.
How's it feel? How's it feel?
It's relieving.
Yeah.
It really is relieving. I think a lot of people have asking me like, oh, are you going to miss it? You're going to miss it. Like, not really. And I think I'll miss, the people we work with
Sure.
and the camaraderie. But, I've been at this since I graduated high school, essentially in public service, and kind of felt like I've done my turn.
Yeah.
So now I'm ready
Absolutely.
to go hunting and fishing and hang out with kids.
Well, that's not a bad life either. I
No.
can go for that too. So I got another decade, but we'll get there.
Goes by quick.
Yeah, I'm hoping so. So just kind of jump into it. What initially inspired you to be a police officer?
Oh, so kind of a long story,
Mhm.
but I'll try to keep it short. Like, I grew up in Wyoming, very middle class family. Every male on both sides of the family had been
Mhm.
in the military. So I left high school and joined the military, and I did that for 8 years active.
Mm-hmm.
And during that time, I was in a medical field. I was a hospital corpsman in the Navy, and during that time, I had gotten my paramedic, my
Mhm.
National Registry paramedic, and I was kind of a golden child at being a paramedic, and I
Yeah.
just kind of thought that's what I would always do.
Mm-hmm.
So I ended up leaving active duty after 8 years and was looking to be a professional full-time paramedic, and ended up moving to Billings. Long story and how that happened. But ended up moving to Billings, and I worked for AMR.
Yeah.
And I loved the people that I worked with, but I went from being super high speed in the military and jumping
Yeah.
out of helicopters and stuff like that
Oh yeah.
to riding in the back of an ambulance, and it just wasn't what I thought it was going to be. So I was
Mhm.
going to go back active duty and was going to go back into the military. And one of the ladies I worked with, she goes, "Oh, the police department's hiring. I think you'd be a good cop."
Mm-hmm.
And this is totally just how my mind thinks. I was like, wow, I really like that show, Cops.
Yeah.
I was like, sure, I'll go do it. So I had already accepted orders. I was still active reserve in the military.
Mm-hmm.
I had already accepted orders to go back to active service, and the police department called me and said, "Hey, we'd like to offer you a job."
Yeah.
And so I had to make this decision. I was like, do I go back active? This was right at the beginning of uh, the war on terror. And I was like, do I just had a brand new baby girl? I was
Mm-hmm.
like, I know I'm going to deploy and all that, or do I stay here? And so
Yeah.
after some discussion, decided to become a cop. I had put virtually no more thought into it than that.
Mm-hmm.
Was that, oh, maybe I'll get to do something exciting
Sure.
and fun. And it was the best decision, I
Yeah.
made career-wise, for me at the time. And here we are, 21 years later, at the end of it. So I guess
Yeah.
my decision-making paradigm is okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or at least works for me.
At least in this instance, right? We're good there.
Right, yeah.
Absolutely. Good. Well, I know you even just mentioning being a Navy corpsman, and that we have a lot of officers here at the Billings Police Department and nationwide that make that transition from military to law enforcement. Some of them, are active or on reserve or guard status and that. How was that transition for you, going from a corpsman into law enforcement?
It related way better than what I thought. My background in paramedicine, in having a chance to work as a civilian, paramedic for a while, paid dividends, probably more than my military training did. But that paramedicine background, because I was used to dealing with people in crisis, people were having the worst day of their lives, at least physically.
Yeah.
And having to make decisions under stress, while you're on an accident scene or while someone's having a heart attack in front of you. And the military training from there, which had bled into the paramedic side of it, being able to think on your feet, being able to deal with stress, being able to work under and make decisions, and make the right decision, and totally related to law enforcement. So by the time I became a cop, I was already used to, dealing with people in crisis, talking to them, changing the conversation, focusing the conversation to what I needed to know about what was going on with them physically.
Sure.
Totally related to what we do as cops. You get there, the scene's chaotic. Like, hey, calm down and talk to me. And you know how it is. Like, people will spin off. Wow, 6 months ago. Like, okay, what brought me here tonight?
Today.
And so those skills, which were surprising to me, to be able to kind of relate to people, to get them to calm down, to build a rapport very quickly. I think a lot of times people are kind of surprised in paramedicine. They're like, oh, you show up, people will trust you. Not all the time. Here, I've just pulled out this giant needle. I'm going to shove it in your arm. Like, oh, no, thank you. Don't want that.
Easy answer.
So you got to kind of talk your way into it sometimes. And I think I did a good job of that early on, and being able to relate that to, getting people to at least talk to me, or realize very quickly, being able to read body language. And realize that, all right, this approach isn't working. I need to pivot to something else, which was funny because I was a police officer for 2 years, and then I got deployed because I was active reserve. And I got deployed and go to Iraq, to Fallujah, and being at that time one of the oldest guys in the platoon. I think I turned 32 the day before we invaded Fallujah. So everybody was walking by, and all these 18, 19-year-old kids, and they're like, oh, Doc, are your hips okay? Like shut up. But that experience as a police officer, when we would stop and talk to people, and being able to read body language, and I was able to, tell my superiors, like, there's something up with that guy. He's not acting normal. He's not acting. And that was a cool kind of thing. I was able to bring from all the careers I had at that point, from being a full-time Navy Corpsman and flying search and rescue, and being a paramedic, to being a full-time paramedic, to being a police officer. And now I'm back to war. Now I'm wrapping everything
full circle for you
together.
That's awesome.
So I think there's a lot of great transitions from law enforcement to military, or from military to law enforcement. I think they're not always the qualities that people think of. Like, oh, you'd be good with weapons. I don't know. I mean, us being firearms instructors, how many times we got to retrain a military guy?
Your favorite guys are the ones that have never shot before, because you have no bad habits to break.
I loved training my daughters on how to shoot, because they had no bad habits. Until 10 years from now, when they run up against some new instructor who's got a new technique. I'm like, oh my, your dad's got you all messed up. You know? So I think this is those skills, like, people think, oh, that'll translate well. That's not necessarily all times the best skills that translate. I think the people skills, and that's, as you know, 90% of what we do, like people skills. If you don't got people skills, you don't forget about it.
You don't do well here.
You don't want to. Not at all. You don't want to do this job.
Not at all. It's all you're dealing with. That's it. Well, obviously, in my opinion, I'm sure everybody else would agree, but I think, we mentioned your career, and I think to say it was success is an understatement. You've been, 2-time Supervisor of the Year, 2-time Medal of Valor. You were on the, SWAT team as not only just a SWAT team member, but also a team leader, setting up several different missions, doing that, head firearms instructor, the head of, or sergeant over in Haida, doing the, undercover drug detectives and that work. So you've done a lot. You've seen a lot. You've been a part of a lot. And, what kind of fuels your drive to attain these levels and continue on with these, certain areas that you've been in? Yeah,
it's weird. I can relate it back to the military. and early in my childhood, like, my mom and dad were very much hard workers. Being a Gen X kid now, I guess, we were latchkey kids.
Right.
Both mom and dad worked.
Mm-hmm.
And so we'd get home to kind of take care of ourselves, and we had our own chores. So you're just kind of used to doing what you were supposed to do
Sure.
and getting those things done. But when I joined the military, I didn't have like a super high drive for
Mhm.
excellence or anything like that. But I got very, very fortunate in getting to work around people who did.
Yeah.
And that was a little bit of everybody, from search and rescue technicians who were just the absolute best at what they did,
Mm-hmm.
to doctors and nurses and paramedics, and then just in the Navy, we have chief petty officer, which is like, they're gods. They're all knowing. They're all seeing. If you don't know, you go ask one of them.
Yeah.
And I was really, really fortunate to work for some great chiefs, which is where one quality I've always had is just a really good quality of observation, just
Mhm.
watching people.
Sure.
And that's where I kind of learned it. Just watching people being really, really great at their jobs. And when you realize, you're like, man, I really admire that guy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why am I always trying to be here? And I was like, well, that's the guy that I want to be.
Yeah.
And the more and more you talk to them, and the more and more you got to start working around them, you realize their mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And that just kind of wore off on me throughout the course of my military. And then I brought that into paramedicine. And by the time I was a cop, I was like, I'm just going to try to do the best job that I can.
Yeah.
And I just want to be constantly trying to get better.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing I found out early on in my military and my paramedicine career is that I was a good instructor. I had the ability
Yep.
to, I'm a hard learner. I'm not a bright person at all. I'm a very, very hard learner. So, and I learned things on what has been described as like an off-axis way of learning.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever you try to teach me, I'm probably not going to get it, but I'll be able to figure it out.
Sure.
And now I have the ability to kind of translate that to
Yeah.
other people who may learn the same way as me.
Yeah.
And so by the time I became an instructor, I found I really enjoyed teaching people.
Mhm.
I enjoyed, developing programs and recognizing what needed to be done, or what could we do better.
Yeah.
And if no one else was going to do it, then why not me?
Sure.
I'll
Great
go
mindset.
do it.
Yeah.
And but in order to be an instructor, I've always kind of had the mindset that if you're going to be an instructor, or like in the police department, we have field training officers.
Mhm.
And I always had the opinion that if you're a field training officer, we expect you to be the subject matter expert
Sure.
at that patrol level. That means you should be able to change your teaching style to the person that you're teaching.
Suit the needs. Yep.
And to me, I think that's like, the ultimate type instructor that you
Mhm.
can go to. And so throughout my career, I've been very lucky to work with like-minded police officers who
Yeah.
were also, as you know, like, being on the SWAT team is one of those things. I mean,
Mhm.
that's the top 10% of
Yep.
the department,
Absolutely.
in my opinion. Other cops might not think that, but we know the truth. But everybody in that team is very fortunate, because everybody has that. We recruit and look for those types of people who
Sure.
are going to first let me take care of my house.
Mhm.
Let me make sure my skills are on par. And then a lot of times like I said, you've trained for years to get
Yeah.
on the team, and then you think you're pretty good, and then you get on the team, you realize, I'm not
Yeah.
that good.
You get humbled real
You
quick.
get humbled really, really,
Really
quick.
quick, yeah.
So I think that, it's just one of those, I'm always really worried about letting people down that I
Mhm.
work with. So,
Yeah.
and on those very, very high stress, calls that we go to, like, that would be my biggest fear, is that I hadn't done enough or prepared enough
Mhm.
in any facet of what we do to cause someone to get hurt.
Sure.
Whether it's, and that goes not only just for the cops, but for, the people that we're dealing with.
Yeah.
I think it's a common misconception that, especially in this day and age, that as a police officer, you just wake up and you're looking to go
Right.
ruin somebody's day.
Right.
And I've never once woke up and thought that,
Right.
So, I think as far as training wise and that drive to, be the absolute best you can be. I mean, for what we do, it comes down to a lot of times to split second decisions. And if your skills have not been taken care of, then you never rise to the level of your expectations. You always fall to the level of your training.
Absolutely.
And so I've always used that. So that was just kind of, I don't know, it's always been stuck with me since those early years in the military. Again, I've been very fortunate in my careers to have phenomenal mentors, all the way through. So
absolutely. And
then as you get older and you become a sergeant, you want to reciprocate that. And
absolutely.
Like, God, the last thing I want is when I retire is, those guys are going to like, oh God, I'm so glad Jagers is gone.
Glad he's gone.
God, he sucked.
That's right. Even just answering that question there, brought me back. One of my memories, favorite memories of you is, I remember we were, we had a firearms day. It was back when you were the head firearms instructor.
Yeah.
And we were doing a plate drill, going through and knocking down. I think we had 6 plates on there. It was a speed drill, speed and accuracy learning, just doing that stuff. And I remember, we all go through and, we're excited about our times, and some of us hit plates, some of us miss plates, the whole thing. And then you go in and you clean the whole thing, and it is lightning speed compared to what everybody else is doing. But then you take your gloves off and you throw them on the ground and said some adult words, as we do when we're upset. And you were upset at yourself because you didn't go fast enough.
Yeah.
You pushed yourself to that level, and you knew that there was a standard that you had set that you didn't achieve. So I think that's a really, really, great attribute that you have is you're pushing yourself, and you push yourself to those limits. So, just definitely something that, as we're talking about here, is just pushing yourself to that area. Yeah. Something very admirable that you have. And, I definitely look up to you on that side of things. So
I'm still mad about that run.
I believe it. That was a violent throw to the ground and ready to go. But I mean, that's just, kind of as your career, you've gone through, and even, I remember, putting, ops plans together for the SWAT team and that type of stuff. And just the attention to detail, how articulate and every angle was thought about, and that. So it was just, it's awesome to see you have people that come through in law enforcement that set standards like that. Because, just you saying that, it's, you want to pass that on to others. And I think the standard you set, is just awesome for us in that, I'm huge. My dad always told me, leave, whatever you do, leave it better than where you found it. And I certainly think you've definitely done that.
I appreciate that.
So
thank you.
Awesome.
Always been a goal.
Absolutely. So we'll jump into, one of the hot things. I sit on the RIMROC task force. And a lot of times, a lot of their questions are geared towards, drugs and what's going on in our community and stuff here. Obviously, you're the man to ask for that, being that you're retiring directly out of the HIDA drug task force. So, can you give us a little, some insight on what we got going on here, what to look out for, and things like that, what you're dealing with there?
Yeah. And, for the last 30 years, probably longer, methamphetamine has been king. That was always our problem. It was meth. And it was so large that a lot of the other drugs began to kind of fade a little bit to the wayside. Heroin and cocaine. And we would still see them, but just not like we would see meth. And then 2020 came around. And when COVID hit and the world locked down, meth became very hard to traffic, specifically across the southwest border. A pound of meth, all wrapped up is, about this big. And to get 30 or 40 of those, stashed, I mean, it makes a footprint in a vehicle. So the cartel's not being, stupid, very savvy. And like, we can't do that. Let's start pushing these fentanyl pills that we have. And at the time, the fentanyl pills we had seen, I think we seized like 18 of them in 2019, 18 total pills. In comparison to the end of 2020 when we had seized 20,000. And it's only gone up from there. Much easier to conceal, 1,000 pills It comes in a bundle. It's about, like that big. Very deceiving.
Yeah.
How many you can, and so very easy to traffic that in a variety of ways. So when fentanyl started hitting in 2020, it kind of changed the game as far as like the way the drug world was working.
Yeah.
It's highly addictive. It's a very, very strong opiate. I think at the time they said it was 50 to 100 times stronger than morphine. I think that number's gone up since then. And the price point on it was insane. So this one little bitty pill, I think at the time in this is year 2020, in Arizona, in Phoenix, it would have been like $1 a pill, and that's plummeted since then. And 2020, at that same time, it was $45 to $50 a pill in Montana by the time it got here. So, I mean, you guys can do the math. You got 1,000 of those.
Huge markup. And
so it's a price point. Once that was realized through the traffickers and the cartels, they started targeting states like North Dakota, Montana, Alaska, because we were kind of in these strange geographical areas. Even southern Wyoming, you've got Denver right there, very easy to move. But Montana was we're kind of out on these geographical islands, with no source city direct to us. So they started targeting it, and the price point was like, I can 1,000 pills for $1 in Phoenix, or 1,000 pills for $45 a pill. I was like, it's all economics.
Absolutely.
And so they were doing the same thing in Alaska. So it's kind of gone from there. So a lot of what we spend our time doing now is fighting the fentanyl issue, because they kind of recognize like, oh, hey, we can make a lot of money up here in Montana. There's people with, they're buying this stuff. We started seeing a resurgence of the cocaine, heroin, and meth. And like, well, let's sell a little bit of everything. And it's been flooding in ever since. So that's kind of like, in my mind, especially here in Billings, mainly because you have the likelihood of having it be lethal quicker is the fentanyl. Fentanyl, so it's always gonna be fentanyl and meth. Meth is still gonna be an issue, but the fentanyl is just, there's so many different ways that they can package it. The most common form right now is pills, but we're starting to see a lot more powder. We're starting to see a lot more different kind of pills in the format that they bring them, and they're just way easier to traffic and hide. So, I mean, it's super simple to call down to a plug in Phoenix and say, I need 1,000 pills, and you cash app them the money directly. They get it, and they put your package in the mail in an express package, and it's to you in 48 hours and delivered to your front doorstep. You don't even got to leave anymore. And so there's, it's insane how difficult it has become to, figure out the routes. And especially when they have no rules. No rules, and just up to their imagination to how to figure it out. So I was telling you earlier, I gave a presentation the other day, and somebody asked me, I was like, well, what's the answer? How do we combat this? I was like, give me unlimited money with unlimited resources and no rules. I was like, and then I'm just on the same playing field as the traffickers. And I was like, that'll obviously never happen. I was like, but that is the reality of it.
Absolutely reality.
So the opiate addiction, like I've had addicts tell me, like, I tried fentanyl and I'll never do it again. Like, I almost overdosed. I'm like, I just went straight back to using meth. I'm like, oh, okay. And that's how scary it is to even the people who use it.
Funny you touch on that too. That was one of the questions I got the other night is the juveniles with the fentanyl that we're seeing. And they've got Narcan at schools now. They've got that. It's how are you seeing that affect some of the juveniles in what you're dealing with?
it's just a little bit of everybody.
Yeah.
And the thing is, when you're a child, or juvenile, everybody's in that exploratory phase,
Sure.
and you get told that something is really awesome. And I got a great story about this. We were out on a surveillance one night. We were following a target around, and we followed them to a local establishment, and they went inside. And so we had set up, and one of the guys came up on the radio and said, "Hey, is anybody in the parking lot across the street? There's a bunch of something going on. There's people running around a car." And I was like, "That's weird." I was like, "Well, I'll do a drive-by really quick." And we all drive unmarks and have beards and wear shorts. And so I drove by, and I mean, I don't want to say juveniles, but young people. And they laid somebody down on the concrete, and they were starting to do it. And I was like, somebody's overdosing right here across the street from us.
Knew it.
And we had a couple of the canines out rolling around with us. And so I was like, "Hey, you guys need to get over here." Right. So they ran over there, and they were able to Narcan him.
Yeah.
And, get him and get to talking to him. And he's like, "This is the first time I ever tried it." We just went and bought a pill, from a guy over the area. And first time I ever tried it. And, I mean, that's how quickly.
Yeah. Lethality of it's sky high.
And so I think a lot of it's curiosity wise. I know the SROs are doing a really good job in the schools with the education.
Absolutely.
And kind of helping along with that. I think the patrol officers probably see the juveniles more than we do. Specifically our group, our job is to work organizations.
Sure.
And so we have a tendency to look at the larger fish in the pond. But it's definitely, it's scary. Like I've got kids in school.
Right.
And, you're constantly talking to them like, "Hey man, think for yourself." Like that's my big thing.
Yeah.
Like, make sure you think for yourself.
Absolutely. That's great advice.
Yeah. So it's, I shudder to think about, it running around a high school or a junior high. Or or even this day and age at elementary school.
Yeah,
like, it would be devastating.
Really scary.
Yeah, absolutely devastating.
Oh man, yeah, it's it's a reality. There's it's something that people need to open their eyes up to. As we kind of were speaking about earlier, is there is evil in the world. We see it every day as we go to work, and you have to understand that is part of reality, especially with what we're dealing with nationwide right now. So Billings isn't unique to it in the fact that we're where we are geographically, but it's happening nationwide.
Absolutely.
You got just open southern borders that they are able to traffic right across.
And I think what really surprises people is like it's easy to say that this is a Billings problem.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah,
biggest city in Montana.
Oh yeah.
This is a Billings problem. No, it is not.
Right.
We call like we're a mobile road show. In our task force, we'll go anywhere. If you call and ask for help, we'll go. And we've done operations in Lewistown, Glendive, Shepherd, Roberts, Montana, Red Lodge, Columbus, Ekalaka. You ever heard of Westby, Montana?
Never heard of Westby.
Literally at the corner of Canada, Montana, and North Dakota.
Oh wow.
We've been there twice.
Northeast, yeah.
It's a town of like 300 people, and for probably the largest task force in the state to be up there twice, and that should tell you it's everywhere.
Yeah.
Because every dollar counts.
Yep.
So why limit it to the big cities when you can send it,
Yeah, it's a business for the cartels.
Absolutely.
All about money.
And that's what probably makes me the most angry.
Mm-hmm.
Is a lot of people who traffic this and they push it onto people are not users.
Mm-hmm. Right.
They know that this is a business, and they know that they are, that someone's probably going to die at some point.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the part that always kind of fueled me is when I took over as the commander.
Yeah.
It's very difficult a lot of times. When you're talking with the addicts and all that, and I've spent a lot of time interviewing people and talking with addicts. And one of the first questions I always ask them is like, "Hey, man, tell me your story.
Mm-hmm.
You know, how did you get here? When did you first start using?"
Right.
And it's amazing. The story's almost always the same. Some major traumatic life event,
Mm-hmm.
or
Sure.
unfortunate circumstances,
Yeah.
lack of support
Mm-hmm.
and resources, and just kind of wanted to escape, and now here they are.
Yeah.
And whereas when you're dealing with a true trafficker,
Mm-hmm.
someone who is in the organization, "Oh, I've never used."
Yeah.
"Oh, I drink alcohol," or like, no,
Sure.
like that's the person that you said, that's the evil part of it
Right.
for me, that I just can't wrap my head around why you would do
Right.
that to people.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. I mean, there's that. Just as we're saying, I've got the music playing, and there's that line in that '90s hip hop song, "Never get high on your own supply."
Yeah.
And it's true. It's
Absolutely.
exactly what they're living
It's
off
just,
of.
and it's business, and it's all business.
Yeah.
To
Yeah.
them.
There's no face. They don't see victims of this whatsoever. It's
Right.
all dollar
Yep.
signs.
All dollars.
Just fuels it.
And like I said, I think people would be shocked, and I can't go into all specific numbers or anything like that, but just the money that comes out of Billings,
Mm-hmm.
on a monthly basis.
Mhm.
I've asked people before, like, how much money you think like cartels could move.
Oh
They're
yeah.
like, $20,000, $30,000, like anywhere from $1.5 to $3.5 million a month,
Wow.
just out of Billings.
Multiply that nation statewide.
Right.
Even.
Exactly.
That's.
And so it's absolutely insane.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. That'll open some eyes.
yeah.
For sure.
And people are just like, "Oh, I didn't think we had that big of a problem." Like, "Oh yeah, we do.
Mm-hmm.
We really do. It's a real thing."
Yeah.
And
No doubt. No doubt. Well, we appreciate all your work towards combating it and the knowledge you've gotten. Getting, I know it's a tidal wave that we're going up against, is the little man, but
right.
it still fuels us. Like you said, you find those reasons that fuel you to get up and go to work every day and work harder and get after it. So
a weird thing, and so the year that I took over, my youngest daughter was born, and
Mhm.
she was born a month early. And so she was in the NICU,
Mhm.
and the day after she was in the NICU, they had another preemie come in who was born addicted to meth. And I sat in there, and it was just a weird coincidence. I mean, I'm
Mhm.
brand new as the boss, but I sat in there and I listened to that little baby scream for 3 days. Didn't know why it was in pain.
Mhm.
Didn't know why it hurt, but it just absolutely screamed.
yeah.
And until they were amazing up there, and that just really kind of stuck with me.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, that's why I'm gonna wake up, and that's why I'm gonna go
That's a can of gasoline to your
do
fire.
this. I
Yeah.
was like, that little baby is way stronger than I am.
Yeah.
Immediately was born and straight into a fight
Right.
for its life. So, a lot of times when you're interviewing people, or you're talking with a trafficker, and they're like, "Oh, you're kind of being mean." And I was like, there's a reason why.
Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah. If you knew
yeah.
what you did.
And so it's just kind of a funny story, and those little things. So like I said, as you go throughout your career, you find little things to grab you
Yeah.
and motivate you.
Yeah.
And we're like, yeah, this is why we're out here
we do what we do.
doing that. Yeah.
No doubt.
So
No doubt.
yeah.
Speaking of why you do what you do, so 21 years you've gone through, as you said, gone by quick. Has there ever been a point during that 21 years, or even maybe recently, or your decision to retire, did you felt that you met the pinnacle of your career, or was there a point that stands out to you where you did?
I would probably say these last 5 years, as the task force commander, we're kind of in. It was weird because it was never anything I kind of inspired to be. I've always just kind of had a kind of organic flow to how I would do things. But over there, everything I had done prior to getting that position had kind of set me up perfectly. Like, I couldn't have timed my career better.
Yeah.
A background, as a detective, a a patrol guy on nights for 7 years,
Mhm.
being a detective, becoming a sergeant and getting to work patrol and see how that works,
Yeah.
being on the SWAT team for 11 years,
Mhm.
having that all tactical background, my paramedicine background as a trainer and all that, and then it all kind of like gave me this real great pedigree
Yeah.
for rolling into that position, because that position by far, that sergeant has the most responsibility
Mhm.
that sits with him, and at times it's a heavy responsibility, and and it couldn't have like set me up better. I was
Mhm.
able to, and the way it all kind of worked out was we had a bunch of promotions. We had a retirement, we had a bunch of promotions, and the outgoing commander got promoted,
Mhm.
and so he's coming out, and then I got
Yeah.
to do this process. So by the time I get like, hey, I'm the guy, I'm going over, and I get to go over and sit with Brandon. And it was like 4 hours,
Yeah.
and he was basically like, hey, here's how you do everybody's timesheets. Here's how we get paid. And he goes, all right, I'm taking off. I was like, oh, so I'll like see you tomorrow. And he's like, no, I'm not coming back. I have all faith.
This is yours.
I have all the faith you'll be able to figure this out. And I just remember I had this, what?
Deer in the headlights.
And so I spent a lot of time on the phone with him.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Yeah. I can still
Um,
find you.
yeah. But really, all of those skills, like I couldn't have timed it better. You're at the pinnacle of the investigations.
Mhm.
We're our investigations often go international,
Sure.
and we can go with them
Yeah.
to do that. Kind of everything you're doing, all the resources that you have
Mhm.
in that task force. I think there's 9 different agencies represented
Yeah.
in that task force, and it's super cool. And you're working with all of the detectives and agents who want to be there.
Mhm.
And in every agency that's involved is always like, hey, if my guy is underperforming, get him out of there.
Can't come out.
Which is not like anywhere else.
Yeah. No.
You don't really find that. So it really is, kind of them giving you an all-star lineup
Mhm.
of, hey, go do this.
Yeah.
So that's kind of been like, the highlight for me in my, and especially being a cop,
Mhm.
is kind of getting to that point, and then being able to go, and where do I go from here?
Yeah.
Like, I don't. I've gained some weight being in the task force. I don't want to put a uniform back on again. I kind of like my beard.
I like. Yeah, that works out perfectly in cold weather too. It's a good
And I
Montana
was
look.
like,
Yeah.
maybe it's just and again, because of my involvement in the task force, it led to my retirement job,
Sure.
making those connections and paying attention in a class.
Mhm.
And I got hired by a private company teaching, where I get to teach to cops
Mhm.
about forensic drug analysis,
Oh,
which is
yeah.
not anything I ever thought I'd be teaching. I always thought it'd be like firearms or
Yeah,
tactics
sure.
or tactical medicine or something like
Yeah.
that. I'm like, no, I'm teaching science.
You sound like a chemist now.
Yeah, I know. I'm the dumbest person in the room every time I go to a training. But it all kind of, so that was kind of cool. And, I was having a talk with some various people, in the department who I look up to. And, it's been cool that all of them are like, yeah, man,
Mhm.
good for you. You deserve that. You paid your dues.
Yeah.
And so I like that. I appreciate the fact that people are like, yeah, you did a good job at it.
Mhm.
And that's kind of all you ever want.
Yeah.
When you leave the job, is like, all right, that guy was a good cop.
Sure.
That's what you want him to say.
Yep. Yep.
And it's one thing to have your peers say it. I think what's been cool here in this kind of my last month is, people who have been, that I've arrested,
Mhm.
like coming to me and going, you were cool.
Yeah.
Like, I like that. I appreciated that. And I think a lot of people
That's
are
a big
shocked
deal.
by that. Like, yeah, you're in contact. I was like, yeah, I have quite a few people I've arrested in the past who
Mhm.
I'm still in contact with, and
Sure.
offer advice to, and
Yeah.
so forth and so on. So that's been a really cool
That's
part
awesome.
of the career. So
Yep. That is awesome.
yeah.
Well, so we got 21 years in the books. Done. You've obviously serving the community here. Giving your time, staying late, coming in early, especially, being on Haida, you're always on call because the drug world never sleeps.
Right.
So now, obviously, you get time for you now. You said, you got hired by a private company doing some teaching and that stuff. And
Yeah.
what else is next for Sergeant Jagers? Where do you go from here?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, and then, if I had it my way, I would just kind of take a year off. And, but my wife's like, hey, you're not gonna be able to do that. You're gonna have to go back to work, for various reasons. But yeah, I think I'll do this teaching gig and see where that takes me. I've really enjoyed public service, and I've done it ever since I've left high school.
Sure.
And I think I was good at it, but I think I've reached a point where, like if I end up driving a water truck by myself for 12 hours a day, I'd probably be okay with that as well.
Yeah.
My two oldest, I have three kids, and my two oldest daughters have kind of bore the brunt of the bulk of my career.
Sure.
Dad working nights, dad getting called out,
right.
Dad volunteering to go do things, and especially my oldest, who she remembers dad getting deployed and being gone. Yeah. And I kind of think I hit a point, especially there on SWAT, where he'd been on it for a while, and I think it was something like we had to go to, I think we went to Nye for like a vice president detail or something like that. And I wasn't supposed to be a part of that because I was on the range teaching firearms, but somebody got sick or whatever, and so I had to fill in and forgot that I had planned. I'd told the girls that I had planned on doing something. Yeah. And I had to call and tell them like, yeah, no, I gotta go up there for a couple days. And I just remember my oldest daughter, she was like, I think she was a senior in high school, and she was like, ugh. So I think a lot of those things I'd kind of like to make up.
Yeah.
And and I have our little one who just turned 5. And here's what's kind of heartbreaking. This was real. She's just now realizing that dad is a police officer.
Oh, sure.
And she's like, Dad, when I grow up, I want to be a police officer so I can catch bad guys with you. And I was like, well, you better hurry up.
I'm gone here soon.
But she for the most part won't know about it.
Sure.
Because I'll have which is a really weird thing to think about. But
pros and cons, absolutely.
Yeah. But yeah, I want to spend more time with the family, really kind of concentrating more on not being career oriented. I think that's something I've been looking at. It, as you know, when you work at a high level, and you've said a lot of nice things about me, but you're also that high level guy as well.
Thank you.
When you work at a high level, you have a tendency to just like that's what you just focus on. Yep. Like I hate losing, and I don't want to lose, and trying to get myself okay with I don't have to be the best at
operate in that space.
Like I can sit back and calm down a little bit, and
blood pressure will appreciate that, I'm sure.
And that's another large part I'm looking forward to, is just like focusing on health and well-being. This job is tough on you physically and mentally.
Absolutely. And
so I'm looking forward to just not being as high strung as I normally am. With going to work. So that's what I like about this retirement job. It's like, I go teach a class, no big deal. Yeah. I can do that, and not worrying about all right, what's going to happen today? How's this going to go down? What do we got to do if this happens? Yeah. What's going over here with this investigation?
Sure.
I need to plan for this. I need to plan for that. Oh, I got to do the budget. They didn't tell me that either when I became a cop.
I bet that's huge.
That I was going to have to do budgets,
math, spreadsheets and all that.
Yeah.
Ugh, gross.
I was just going to drive around and do burglary calls.
Yeah, that's right. Just like cops, like you watched.
Right. Exactly. I think there's a large part of like when you look back on your career, especially when you get to the higher levels and you've got so much going on, you're like, and that's why there's a lot of cops who retire from other agencies and we hire. It's like, I just want to be a patrol officer. Yeah. Like I enjoy doing that. I like going to calls, like, helping people and all that. And, and just the simplicity of it. And
Yeah.
when your shift's done,
Bread and butter.
you're done. You turn in your cases and, you know,
Yep, and go home.
yeah, you know, not like being, you know, being on vacation in Florida and I still have my work phone next to me, still responding to texts. And,
Spouses love that.
yeah, like, kind of calm down.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Get out of that a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, obviously you've got a little bit of free time, so I'm going to take a minute. I'm going to highlight a few things that we've got going around town. You know, something I'm sure you may be a part of a couple of them there,
Yeah,
or
possibly.
one or the other. But I'm just going to highlight real quick a few happenings in Billings coming up. We just confirmed last night with the chief. Actually, the chief is going to be doing a press conference March 6th at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. We're going to highlight some of the efforts of the officers in response to some of the violent crime that we saw back here in 2023. So we'll be having that. I assume we're going to be at the barn for that, but keep a lookout for that on our on our Facebook page, and obviously the media will put that out there as well. So March 16th, we've got the St. Patrick's Day Parade downtown here. So you know, get out with the family and all the floats and everything, and then you can go have some fun afterwards with you know, bands playing and all that good stuff. So a great day to be out with the family. Hopefully we'll get some good weather for that too. And then March 22nd at the Centennial Ice Arena at 6:30, we've actually got the Guns and Hoses charity hockey game. So some of the Billings Police or Montana Police Protective Association members, some of our own Billings police officers themselves are going to be playing hockey against the firefighters. All the proceeds from that will go to Family Promise. We'll get some of that up on the Facebook page here just a little bit, so you've got some information on that as well. But March 22nd at 6:30 at the Centennial Ice Arena is what we got going on. So upcoming events there for the month of March, and then we'll get our podcast out later in the month of March. We're working on a couple of special guests for that one as well. But we'll kind of jump back in our focus of this one. And Justin, we really appreciate you being here today.
Yeah.
You know, it's congratulations on such an incredible career. Definitely just like, you know, we've said many times, but a standard set for, you know, others to look up to and to match, you know, myself included in that. So just appreciate all your mentorship to myself and, you know, and some of the different specialties I was able to work for you, under for you there. You know, the advice you've given, the example you've set, and just the path you've paved for a lot of officers here in this department. So I really appreciate it. It's been a pleasure working for you. Congratulations on your retirement, and you know, happy retirement too, and enjoy that time off, buddy.
Yeah.
Enjoy it
Thank
off.
you. Oh, I appreciate all those nice things you said. No, it's been a great career. Don't regret any of it.
Yep.
And like I said, my organic decision making kind of always worked out for me. So
Absolutely. And if you
Yeah.
guys get a chance and you see Justin out or you're anywhere, take a few minutes. He tells some amazing stories. We can't get to on here, but he's got some great stories to tell too. So awesome storyteller. I love it.
awesome.
So
No, thank you. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
absolutely. Billings, you guys have a good day. Stay safe out there and enjoy the cold for a few more months, and then we'll get back to some summer weather. So have a wonderful day.